You know that feeling when you're trying to get your head around something really significant, maybe like how AI is changing healthcare,
Oh, yeah.
and you're just faced with this flood of information.
Totally overwhelming sometimes. Like, where do you even start?
Exactly. It's like trying to find that one signal in a huge mountain of data. Well, that's where we step in.
Right.
Welcome to the deep dive. We're kind of your express route to understanding what actually matters. We sift through the complexity, so, you know, you don't have to. We bring you the crucial insights.
And today we're focusing on a really extraordinary resource. It's generating a lot of buzz in the medical AI community. It's called the ReXGradient-160K dataset.
ReXGradient-160K.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hosted by Harvard Medical AI, and you can actually get it through Hugging Face, which is pretty accessible.
Hugging Face, right. That
Yeah,
makes it easier for researchers.
definitely. Its accessibility is a big deal.
Okay, so this ReXGradient-160K
Hmm.
sounds maybe a bit technical, but what is it like at its core?
Well, don't worry about the name too much. At its heart, it's just a massive collection of chest X-ray images.
How massive?
An astounding number, 273,004 images.
Wow.
Yeah, and they come from 160,000 different radiological studies. And importantly, they're not just images floating around.
No.
No, each one comes with the detailed report that the radiologist wrote.
Ah, okay. The text part.
Exactly. And this huge pile of data, it comes from three big U.S. healthcare systems. That covers 79 different medical sites.
79.
Yep. And records from over 100,000 unique patients. It's really comprehensive.
That multi-site thing sounds important. It's not just from one hospital's perspective.
That's what's truly groundbreaking here, I think. Not just the sheer size, but yeah, the fact it's multi-site.
Why does that matter so much?
Well, it's vital because AI models trained on data like this, they're much more likely to be reliable, effective, in different real-world clinical settings.
Not just tuned to one specific place.
Exactly. So for you listening, this really signifies a powerful resource for pushing AI forward in reading medical images, even maybe drafting those radiology reports.
And we can sort of grasp its potential without getting totally bogged down in the legal agreements and technical specs ourselves.
Precisely. We can get you well-informed fast.
It's still pretty remarkable, though, that so much medical data is publicly accessible for research. I mean, there must be some strings attached, right?
Oh, for sure. It is publicly accessible, which is a huge plus for researchers, no doubt. But yes, there is a non-commercial data access and use agreement.
Non-commercial. Okay.
Yeah, that's the core principle. The data is strictly for non-commercial research and non-clinical uses.
So you can study it, learn from it, understand AI better.
Right. But you can't say build a commercial diagnostic tool directly with it and sell that without sorting out separate agreements.
That makes perfect sense. So, okay, for researchers or even just someone curious who wants to explore it, what are the key things in that agreement they really need to know?
Well, there are several key conditions. First off, attribution. You absolutely have to give credit.
All right.
Any public sharing of work that uses this data, like a research paper, maybe a presentation, it has to clearly acknowledge the ReXGradient-160K data repository and Gradient Health as the sources.
Standard academic practice, basically. Give credit where it's due.
Exactly. It's all about transparency and, proper scientific conduct.
Understood. What else should someone keep in mind? Any other big restrictions?
Well, as we said, no commercial use, that's firm. Also, you can't just redistribute the data set yourself.
Okay, can't pass it along.
Nope. And crucially, any attempts to try and figure out who the actual patients are from the anonymized data, strictly forbidden. Major ethical line there.
Absolutely. Privacy is paramount.
And data security, too. The agreement stresses that users should really only download and use the part of the dataset they actually need for their specific research question.
So don't just grab the whole massive thing if you only need a fraction.
Exactly. It's about focused, responsible data handling. Be mindful.
Okay. Anything else on the agreement front?
Yeah, a couple more things. It emphasizes staying current. Researchers need to check for updates to the data periodically.
Ah, so versions might change.
They might. And if they do, you're supposed to use the latest version and securely destroy any older copies you have.
Got it. Keep up to date.
And there's also a critical reporting bit. If somehow someone accidentally finds identifiable information, or if they suspect the data is being misused,
I have to report it.
immediately report it straight to Harvard. It's all about maintaining the integrity and security of the data.
Wow, okay. It sounds like a very carefully thought out framework. Sharing valuable data, but doing it responsibly.
That's the idea.
Now let's circle back to the scale you mentioned earlier. Those numbers were huge. Can we just sort of recap how extensive this really is?
Absolutely. Let's nail it down. We're talking 160,000 distinct radiological studies.
Yeah.
And within those studies, a total of 273,004 individual chest X-ray images.
Just staggering number.
See, it really is. And this scale, it firmly makes it the largest publicly available multi-site chest X-ray data set out there right now.
The biggest of its kind, basically.
That's right. And just try to imagine the sheer diversity of cases, the different patient conditions, the subtle findings, all packed into that volume of data. It's incredible raw material for training really sophisticated AI models.
And I remember you said it's not just one big data dump, right? It's organized somehow.
Exactly. It's not just thrown out there. It's thoughtfully divided up into specific subsets, which is super helpful for the AI development process.
How so?
Well, there's the main training set. That's the biggest chunk, 140,000 studies, almost 239,000 images. That's what you use to actually teach the AI.
Yeah, the learning phase.
Then you've got validation and public test sets. They're smaller, about 10,000 studies each, around 17,000 images apiece.
What are they for?
The validation set helps you fine-tune your AI model during development, and the public test set, that's for objectively checking how well it performs on data it's never encountered before, like a practice exam.
Gotcha. Training, tuning, testing.
Right. And interestingly, there's also another 10,000 studies kept aside as a private test set. That one's reserved specifically for evaluating models submitted to something called the ReXrank Benchmark.
ReXrank Benchmark.
Okay.
Hold that thought for a sec. Let's talk about the images themselves first. Are they like the super high-res files a radiologist looks at day to day?
Good question. Not exactly in their original form. They started as DICOM files. That's the standard format in medical imaging.
Right.
But they've been converted to 16-bit PNG format for this data set.
PNGs. Okay. Different format.
Yeah. And importantly, this is part of that data use agreement we talked about. They've also been downsampled.
Downsampled, meaning made smaller.
Yeah. Reduced in size. Their dimensions are basically cut down to 1/4 of the original.
Why would they do that?
Well, it's likely a balance. You still get valuable visual information for research, but it helps manage the huge data storage needs and maybe adds another layer, however small, related to privacy.
Okay, so still very useful image data.
Yeah.
It's optimized a bit for this kind of research use.
Exactly.
And you said earlier, each image comes paired with a radiology report.
Mhm.
That sounds crucial. What kind of info is actually in those reports?
Oh, they're incredibly rich. They're a really invaluable source of text information, and they're structured in a standard way, usually with 4 key sections.
4 sections, okay.
Yeah. First, there's the indication.
Yeah.
That basically tells you why the X-ray was ordered, the patient's background, symptoms, the clinical question.
Okay, the reason for the scan.
Then there's comparison. If the patient had previous scans, this section mentions them, so the radiologist can see changes over time.
Context. Now,
Exactly. Then the big one, findings. This is where the radiologist describes in detail everything they see on the X-ray images. Observations, abnormalities, measurements, everything.
the raw observations.
Pretty much. And finally, you have the impression. This is the summary, the bottom line. Key findings, the diagnosis or possible diagnoses, maybe recommendations for next steps.
So it's like the whole story of that X-ray.
It really is. Think of it as the radiologist's expert interpretation laid out. You've got the reason, the comparison, the detailed observations, and the conclusion. It's this combination, the images, and this structured text that makes the data set so powerful.
Yeah, you can really see how that combination of visual data and, well, medical language would be incredibly useful for training AI.
Totally. Training it not just to see patterns in the images, but to actually understand and articulate the medical findings in text.
So this opens up significant possibilities, doesn't it, for developing and testing AI systems?
Huge opportunities. Systems that could potentially assist with analyzing the images themselves, maybe flagging subtle signs of disease that are easy to miss.
Like a second pair of eyes.
Sort of, yeah. Or systems that could help automate parts of generating the radiology reports. Imagine AI tools that could draft a preliminary report based on the image findings.
That could really enhance efficiency for radiologists, maybe even accuracy.
That's the hope. It's about supporting clinicians, making their workflow smoother, potentially improving patient care down the line.
And that brings us back nicely to that ReXrank benchmark thing you mentioned earlier. what exactly is its role here?
Right. ReXrank, it's basically a public platform, like a leaderboard, specifically designed to evaluate AI models that generate radiology reports automatically.
Ah, okay. A competition, almost.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
By using a big standardized data set like ReXGradient-160K as the common ground, researchers from anywhere can train their report-generating AI models.
And then see how they stack up against others.
Exactly. They submit their model's performance on that reserved private test set we talked about, and ReXrank provides a standardized evaluation. It fosters innovation, encourages people to push the boundaries, and helps track progress in this very specific field.
So it's like a global yardstick for measuring progress in AI-powered radiology reporting. Makes sense. Now, say researchers use this data, they participate in ReXrank. Maybe they make some real breakthroughs. How do they make sure they properly acknowledge the source in their papers or talks?
Yeah, that's crucial. The Hugging Face page for the dataset actually makes it really easy. They provide very clear guidelines for citation.
Like copy-paste references.
Pretty much. They include specific BibTeX entries. That's a common format for references in science for both the ReXGradient-160K dataset itself and for a related research paper that describes the ReXrank benchmark in more detail.
So no excuse not to cite it correctly.
Absolutely. Using those standard citations in any publications or presentations is essential. It's about academic integrity, making sure the creators and contributors get the recognition they deserve for making this amazing resource available.
It's good they make it straightforward. It is all about building on a foundation of properly credited work, isn't it?
Couldn't agree more.
And speaking of credit, who was responsible for bringing this all together and sharing it? It must have been a huge undertaking.
It really must have been. The data set itself, the ReXGradient-160K data, was provided to Harvard by a company called Gradient Health.
Gradient Health.
Yeah, so that represents a pretty significant contribution from a healthcare technology company towards advancing open medical AI research.
That's great to see industry contributing like that.
It is. And beyond that, the project also received vital financial backing. This came through the Biswas Family Foundation's Transformative Computational Biology Grant,
Okay.
which was managed in collaboration with the Milken Institute. So it often takes these kinds of partnerships, industry, foundations, academic institutions to make such valuable, large-scale resources a reality.
So a big thank you, really, to Gradient Health and the Biswas Family Foundation for their roles in this.
Definitely worth acknowledging.
Now, if someone listening has heard all this, they're intrigued, and maybe they have more specific questions about the data set, is there a way for them to get in touch with the team at Harvard?
Yes, absolutely. They do provide a contact email. It's yaomanzhang@hms.harvard.edu.
Xiaomanzhang at hmsharvard.edu. Got it.
Right. And they just ask that if you do email, please include ReXGradient-160K in the subject line. Just helps them route the inquiries efficiently. I imagine they get quite a few.
Makes sense. Good tip. Okay, fantastic. So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into the ReXGradient-160K dataset, what are the absolute essential takeaways for you, our listener? What's the bottom line?
I think the key point is that ReXGradient-160K is a really major step forward, specifically for AI research focused on medical imaging, especially chest x-rays, and also that automated generation of radiology reports. Being the largest publicly available multi-site data set of its kind, complete with those detailed reports, it just offers immense potential to drive real breakthroughs in how AI can support doctors and radiologists.
Even with the access agreement keeping things non-commercial for now.
Right. Access is governed by that agreement, emphasizing responsible, non-commercial use. But just its existence, its availability, that promises to speed up advancements in this really vital field of medicine.
It really feels like a foundational piece for future work.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, maybe something for you to ponder after listening.
Oh.
No, just thinking. Given the vast potential of resources like this, like ReXGradient-160K, what do you think might be some of the most significant practical applications we could see down the road? AI developed using this kind of data, how might it actually change the day-to-day practice of healthcare?
That's a great question to leave people with. Not just the research, but the tangible impact, right?
Yeah.
How could this translate into better healthcare outcomes or make doctors' lives easier or catch diseases earlier?
Exactly. Lots to think about there.
It really is. And understanding these resources like ReXGradient-160K, it kind of gives us all a clearer window into those exciting possibilities that lie ahead in AI-assisted medicine.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that forward-looking note, our deep dive for today comes to an end. Thanks so much for joining us.